Company. And tonight, I am super excited to have our very own Fireside chat here with real estate expert Tom Olson. Before we get started with tonight's event, I do just have a couple of quick announcements. Also, I would kind of let people get signed on a little bit. But this is just one of many events that we host here at Quest Trust Company. Guys, keep an eye out in the chat. I do have Sarah Shellum, one of our other IRA specialists. She's here moderating tonight's event, and she's actually going to post some helpful links for you guys to our different educational resources, our upcoming events, as well as all of our contact information as well. So just a few quick announcements for you guys. This Saturday, we have a really big event coming up. It's online at 10 a.m. Central Time. But this Saturday, we are doing a 2021 forecasting panel. It'll be slightly different from tonight's event, different panel of experts, so different information offered. But this event will be with Eddie Wilson from Think Realty and Richard Wilson, the CEO of Family Office Club. So another two very high quality speakers. We are super excited to have them join us for this event Saturday. And my only other announcement that I have for you guys tonight before we really get into the presentation is we have a special promotion going on this month for Coverdell Education Savings Accounts. I'm sure we'll probably talk a little bit tonight about, IRAs, the current state of things, but saving for your children's education is so important. School is expensive, whether you pay for it or you make your kids pay for it. You want to start planning now and saving for their education. And this holiday season, we have a little gift package that we've put together. It has some helpful little financial tips, some coloring, some other fun things for your kids. But here in the back, we have a little certificate that you can actually show your children that you are saving for their education, get the kids involved, get them excited about it, and get it on their radar because it's so impressive to learn about these things as a young child. It's actually kind of helped me get to where I am today. But for everyone who opens up a Coverdell this month, we'll send that to you and also set up a consultation with us. We can teach you some of the different strategies of partnering that account with your other IRAs so you can grow multiple buckets of money at the same time. But we have several other classes that will walk you through all of those different concepts there. Nathan, that's all I have for my quick announcements tonight. Join us for that event Saturday.
For you, that was quick, Haley.
That's all I got. I'm ready for the fireside chat.
Is everyone getting signed on? Should we wait a few minutes? Are we good? And then they can talk to us in chat, or how do they talk to us?
Yes. So tonight's event, we definitely want to make it interactive, even though it is all virtual. If you guys have questions throughout the presentation, be sure to send them to the Q&A box. That way they don't get buried in the chat. I will say for panel presentations like this, try to keep the questions concise, not too long. It's much easier to ask them when they're not a full paragraph. So just kind of some tips there whenever you guys are sending your questions to us, makes it easier for us to be able to address all of them. But yeah, send it there. Sarah's posting the links, and super excited for tonight's event and excited to see what Tom has in store for us.
So just a little bit about tonight and how we came up with the idea for it is I've been calling around to some of the people I know that are experts, and I'm like, what's going on? What do you see? What's going to happen? Like what? And as I listen, I sometimes think, man, people need to hear this. Other people need to hear this. Let's hear some different views. Let's hear what's going on. Let's put our heads together. Let's think about it, And one of those people that I call when I need to have a perspective, get an idea about things, bounce things around, is Tom. Tom Olson. I've known him for a long time. I've gone up his way, and I've spoken up there up north in that cold weather. And he's come down here. We've been friends for a very long time. He also has handled quite a few of mine and my family's investments into certain things over the period of years. I am not endorsing anybody because we don't do that at Quest. We don't endorse anybody. Do your own due diligence. Check everything out for himself. But I happen to like Tom, so that's why I asked him here. And I think that he could answer some questions for us that would be helpful. I've asked Haley to stay too. She's got questions too. She wants to know. So she wants to be one of the things. And we're just going to drill you, Tom, and we'll fill in the IRA information. If you have questions back to us, we can do it that way. Tom, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, why I think that your opinion should matter.
Well, sure. Well, first of all, before you get started, I do want to just kind of reiterate what Haley talked about with the Coverdales. And this is something that we've done for our kids personally. And we don't just do the Coverdales for them, but we've also explained to them what we're doing for them and how much money will be available to them. And my kids are only 14, 12, or actually 13 now, and 7. And my 7-year-old doesn't quite get it yet. But the 14-year-old really is starting to grasp and understand, okay, this is how much she's going to have to take care of. This is how much I can take care of. And she's starting to get a vested interest in her investments, which I think is really exciting. So as much as I believe in the self-directed and the Quest and everything you guys do there to be able to help people have financial freedom and help people save on taxes and help people with their own personal wealth, it is a great piece of legacy to be able to hand out to your kids with the knowledge. It's not just the actual vehicles that you can hand down and the money that you can hand down, but the knowledge and the understanding of how it actually works.
You're definitely singing to the choir here, because I've watched Haley grow up, and her father was one of my first clients, and he's a real estate investor, and he did the same thing with her. And I was clever enough to do it with my son too. Like when you first start, they don't pay too much attention. But as the years go on and they see the investments and you talk to them and you see it and they see it grow, it gets exciting for them, and now my son's an IRA specialist too, So if you ever get a chance to pull up and talk to Haley about her own investments, she has all types of fun and interesting investments, at her tender young age.
And I couldn't pass up the opportunity to just kind of plug that, because it really is. It's not just about the IRA, and it's not just about the money, and it's not just about the Coverdale. It is really about what you're giving and the result that you can, and the knowledge that you can pass on to your kids. And also, you guys mentioned my friends Eddie Wilson and Richard Wilson, and those guys are amazing friends of mine. I think I actually passed on Richard Wilson's information to you guys. And they've both been at our mastermind. Eddie's been in our mastermind since day one. But so they're really amazing people. If you guys do get a chance to check.
My first time meeting them. So
it really,
I'll meet them on stage for the first time. Yeah.
Really good. Super smart people on both ends there. As far as me, who I am. I am Tom Olson. I have this crazy dream to flip the city of Gary, Indiana. And that's where we're at here in Gary, Indiana. And I also want to give away $1 billion. So really, like, the whole reason why I do anything that I do in real estate or in anything else is to try to reach one of those two goals. So we build rental portfolios for people right here in Northwest Indiana. Most of it that we do right now is in Gary, Indiana. And we are seeing some amazing things happen here over the last 2 or 3 years since we've been really focusing on Gary. There's actually 2 big groups that have actually moved from other states to Gary in the last 6 months, promoting what they're doing. And it's actually kind of it's very interesting to kind of watch. And I pray for the city every single day. So definitely something that my heart is here. And I know it's a long-term thing for me. So we have a development company that we buy, fix, rent, and then sell turnkey rental properties through Olson Group. We also have a property management company that manages for them, and a construction management company as well. Me and my wife have a small regular rental portfolio of our own. And then we also own and manage 15 vacation/corporate rentals, which I actually think right now is one of those weird asset classes. And that I'm actually talking about corporate rentals here, not necessarily vacation rentals. The corporate rental market, I believe, is one of those markets to watch in 2021. Because of something me and Nathan just talked about before this whole show started. People are moving for work. It's already happening. It's going to continue to happen. And the corporate rental model for us is something that we personally are in our own portfolio are actually going to.
I have a corporate rental.
decrease in our vacation rentals, and we're going to add to the corporate rentals.
Yeah, we have a corporate rental, and we added to it. So we made it over the course of this year. It just makes sense. Instead of putting people in hotels and stuff, it's nice to have that. And it's worked really well for us as a corporation.
Yes. As far as the perfect avatar for tenants, you don't get people who mess up houses. You rarely ever get animals, and you rarely ever get a bunch of kids that are going to mess up everything as well. So you really get the perfect person in those places. So that's a little bit what I do. I also own the Good Success Mastermind. And you were talking this before we got started about a fireside chat. And I was thinking to myself, well, do I need to have like a fireplace in the background or something for this chat? But then I was like, you know what? My logo has a flame right on it. So
there it is
here with the fireplace in chat. So the Good Success Mastermind is comprised of Christian business owners that really want to have a greater impact on this earth. They want to work to have to give. And they know that in order to do that, they need to create very profitable businesses so that their business, so they can have the work to have part of that work to have to give.
So many people don't understand real estate investing really does give a lot back to the community. Most of the time, a community is hard hit by something. The first person coming in with the money to fix things are investors, and they do, and without us and the things, the money that we interject into times, things are difficult. It makes it really hard. There are areas of the countries where they made it hard for us to inject cash, and those areas of the country are struggling.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, and actually we saw that in Gary for many years, which is part of the reason why it is where it is now. And we're just now finally starting to see the tide turn a little bit, and for them to be very open to investment. In fact, they even sold one of their prized possessions in downtown Gary to a phone manufacturer who's going to come in and be the only 5G phone manufacturer in the United States, and produce probably 3,000 to 4,000 or 5,000 jobs. So you're absolutely right. It takes investment in order to change communities. And I believe that communities need three different things. They need investment in business. They need the citizens themselves to take responsibility, and they also need government. It doesn't work with just one of those. It doesn't work with just two of those. It's like a three-legged stool. If all three of them aren't producing,
and when it breaks hard. I mean, you can look at places like Detroit, where they made it really difficult for investors to come in. I can't even let my IRA people hold houses in the county where Detroit is, because they made it so difficult that it involves lawsuits too much. But it's crazy, and then you look at the communities that have had some really tragedies, and the investors have swooped in and really made some differences.
Mm-hmm.
It's always cool. It's something that people don't talk about. Sorry, I'm getting way off, Haley. You might have to steer us back sometimes.
That's fine with me.
It happens all the time.
Awesome.
So yeah, as far as the mastermind is concerned, I try to come at the mastermind just like we are. I just facilitate it, and I'm coming at it just like as another business owner myself. We have three different boot camps that we put with the mastermind: the sales and marketing boot camp, a business builders boot camp, and a know your numbers boot camp that we kind of add along with that mastermind. Other than that, that's really who I am. And I've been friends with the Quest family. Love to go on their different events and cruises that they've done.
How long has it been? I was trying to figure it out. And as I get older, all that stuff just kind of washes together. At least a decade, right?
Yeah, probably close to, if not. I mean, I'm thinking probably 2011 or 2012 is when I know for sure I met Quincy and started going on some of the cruises and started speaking at some of the other events around the country with Quest. And I've had a really good relationships with everybody at Quest. Honestly, Quincy has been a really close personal friend of mine, and obviously praying for him quite often. And Rebecca.
God, he needs it.
Yep.
You've got to pray for him so I don't kill him.
He says the same thing about you sometimes. But absolutely, I love the question.
I always, he's got the Parkinson's, but he is anything but a wounded soul. You know what I mean? Quincy just keeps it coming.
That's what you like about
those old watches, Timexes. He can take a licking and just keep on ticking.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Do y'all want to get into our questions that we have
why don't you
prepared
ask?
for
Why don't you
tonight?
ask one question and I'll
Perfect.
chime in as
All right. So just kind of starting at the top of our list here, Tom, we have a pretty wide variety of questions for you, but obviously you've been in real estate for a while. 2020 has been a crazy year. What are some things that you are doing in your business right now to prepare for 2021?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind, especially on this, would be to fund all of your self-directed accounts, right? If you haven't done them yet, make sure
you did not pay him to say that. I'm going to point that out.
Absolutely. They did not pay me to say that. But that is in fact, me and my wife right now are she's done really well in her as a realtor this year. And realtors pay a lot of taxes, just so you guys know. So like that's one of the biggest things that we're doing right now is funding her SEP and trying to make sure that we can save there a little bit. But as far as like, you said we've been doing this for quite a long time, and we have. I've owned businesses for over 20 years, and right now I own 7. And I think you asked kind of like the key question there: what are you doing to prepare? And I think that word prepare is like what you should be doing right now. If you're a business owner, and if you're in real estate, you are a business owner. I know a lot of real estate investors don't treat it like a business. And it's part of one of the reasons why I think they need the masterminds and they need the other different places.
Absolutely.
To teach them.
My God, I cannot tell you how horrible of an investor I was before I had some decent coaching. That's exactly. A true story. And I'm a pretty smart guy. Just ask me.
Are you a smart guy? So I was really like,
I could show you the difference. I could also show you people who lost money year after year with rental property until they got property managers and then did very well with it.
Yep, me too. So treat your business like a business and what do business owners, what should they be doing right now? And this isn't just 2020, 2021. This is every single year. I really do believe that December should be a month that you plan like you've never planned before. It shouldn't be just a month to party and go worry about Christmas. Yes, you should be doing those things. Yes, you should be giving back to your community, giving back to your employees, doing all those things. But I spent almost my entire day today preparing for 2021, reflecting on 2020 and trying to figure out what mistakes we made and what things we could have done better, what things went really well. And then I think if you're not in the regular habit of doing this at least once a year, I'd highly recommend your companies do a SWOT analysis. SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So as a company, I would recommend you sit down with your leadership team. And if it's not your leadership team, maybe you only have a couple of employees, sit down with everybody then and just go over, just ask everybody, what are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? What are our opportunities? And what are our threats? And then I think it's always great to kind of step back and dream big. What if? Like we do an exercise, it's called the what if exercise. So what if nothing, if nothing was in our way, if there was no obstacles, if anything that we wanted were to happen, happened, what would be our perfect result? Who would be our perfect customer? How many of those perfect customers would we have? And what would it look like? So what if? And then I think one of the most important exercises that we do this next exercise quarterly with every one of our companies is called the stop it exercise. And we want to know, what are we going to stop doing? And it's been funny over the years, some of the things that we have come up with, but some of the times, like we just need to verbalize it. Maybe we learned something in the last quarter or 2020, as for the last year. But there's this great video, and if you guys have never watched it, just YouTube Stop It, or Saturday Night Live Stop It. It's a hilarious, clip there, where he's sitting at a guy's desk who's gonna teach him how to or teach this lady what she should be doing and how to solve her fear problems. And the guy just tells her to stop it over and over and over again. It's a lot more funny than how I'm explaining it. But in business, I think the stop it exercise is one of the most important exercises you can do, because you have to say no to all those things in order to say yes to the right things. So those are some things that we do. For us, I also think every business ought to know what level of business they're in. I think that there are actually 7 levels of business. There's the idea phase, there's the hobby phase, the startup phase, the pre-profit phase, the actual profit stage, stage where everybody wants to get. And then after profit, we should be going for scale and legacy and kind of knowing where you're at. And if you have core or key fundamental issues in one of those stages, and I'm going to be honest with you, a lot of us in 2020 have kind of went back a stage in some of our different, businesses. So understand what stage you're in and what core issue or what core discipline or things aren't happening in your business in order to be able to, get you to that next, to stay in the level that you're at now and to get to the next level. So I would just, let me give you an example. So for instance, your company may have been doing really well pre-COVID, and then all of a sudden now everything has changed. So now there's not a consistent lead flow. There's not a consistent, people calling in and a consistent amount of sales happening. So now you may have to go back a level and be like, okay, how do we get these sales? How do we make it more consistent? How do we make, lead flow come in consistent? Maybe we need to switch channels. Maybe we need a new marketing strategy, whatever it is. It's something to really know what those key issues are. I would really spend this time reassess, especially COVID now. Now we're getting into specifically COVID for your business. Reassess what your customer is going through right now. So, yes, you're probably going through something different, and everybody in the United States has a different issue that they're having with COVID. But what are your customers' needs now? They've probably shifted as well, too. So it's very important to not just know what our needs are and what our issues are, what do we need to fix, but what do we need to help our customers with as well. And then in doing so, I'd also review your marketing plan and make sure that your marketing plans, align with what your company goals are and where you want to get to as a business. And, shameless plug at the end, but I'm not really shameful about it, is join a mastermind. If you're not already part of a mastermind, I would tell you, find a group of people that you can connect with, that you can be vulnerable with, that you can get help with, and that you can stay connected to. So, if you're asking me, what are the top 10 or top 20 things that people should be doing right now to prepare for 2021, that's what I'd be doing.
I love some of the points that you made up there. One of the things that we love to do at Quest is we always encourage all our current clients to have what I call a checkup. That's just where you call up on the phone, you get an IRA specialist on the phone, and you just talk about what happened this year and what's going to happen. Do you know why? Because a lot of people wait till January, February, March, April, whatever it is. But all January, what we hear as IRA specialist is, man, I wish I would have known that in December, right? So, and what really happens is everybody right now, we're trying to encourage them to call and do their little checkup, and they're all dragging their feet. And then right after Christmas, that last week, our phones blow up. We're there night and day trying to answer all your questions. So don't stand in the long lines, right? Pick up your phone, call an IRA specialist. And even if you don't have it, just talk, because they'll probably have some knowledge about something that you haven't thought about. They're trained differently than you. And so they think through a different filter than you do as an investor, and they can help you multiply that. That's a great point. I think there's some other really good points there too. It's like you do have,
I call that a checkup from the neck up.
A checkup from the neck up. I like it. Yeah. And that's not just Quest. You should also maybe call your CPA. You could do other things, do some tax planning. And if you don't ask the questions, nobody's going to come and tell you, right? Unless you're a billionaire and have actual real tax planning people. And most of us don't have that, right? You have to have billions to have that. You better do a little bit of it yourself and get on there. I also like the fact that you mentioned that you always got to learn how to be diverse and change. COVID was dramatically different for us. We're lucky. We are a stage 7 company at this point, right? But we went through all 7 stages getting there, I could tell you about some of them. And like you said, fell back several times to the stage before it. Knowing where you are and what you can do, and learning how to be flexible enough to respond quickly. Everything changed for me and my company and my wonderful employees because they're so versatile with their education, just will like work from home, got the computers, got the systems, got everything going. And we've done really well. Though it's been odd not doing events, what's happened? I don't know. When I talk, that's one reason why I'm having this thing. It's happening all the time. People are moving money in. People are moving money out to the stock market. People are getting a lot of payoffs. I know I got a lot of payoffs last year. Whole bunch of cash is building up. I know that investors like here in Texas, that's why I'm mostly going out of state right now. Is in Texas, it's really hard to find a deal. All the courts have been closed down for the foreclosure markets. So there's a huge batch of investors that's where they were getting their deals, and they just don't know what to do. A lot of them can't find deals, and truthfully, there really isn't, great fix and flip type deals out there too much in our area right now. There's some rental properties and some buys and holds and stuff like that. Yeah, but depending on what happens,
a little different in our area because we have some areas that have kind of popped so quickly with COVID to be able to still make deals work. So
it's crazy here in Texas.
It's everything has shifted though, but like that under $200,000 market doesn't matter if it's rental or retail has if anything gotten strong.
Yeah, what's happened here is it's drying up.
Absolutely, yep. It's completely
like
no
inventory. Like if there's a house for under 200,000, it's going to sell for 210 in 12 minutes, literally. Yeah. So it's literally drying up all those type of houses. Whereas a year ago, I could have bought that same house for $100,000, seriously, or even 80. Yeah. Maybe 2 years ago. But what would you say about it, Haley? You've been watching this stuff and all your investments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's true. I actually have several friends that are in the process of buying houses right now, and not even Houston, in Austin, where it's even more competitive. And it's crazy how quickly things are moving. And before COVID, I would always hear my dad talk about how new investors were coming in and they were overpaying for properties, where he used to be able to come in and offer, super low numbers on houses and used to be able to get those deals under contract. Now it's just the amount of investors pouring in. It was much more competitive, much less before COVID really picked things up,
Yeah, I'm kind of worried now. Here in Texas, we always complain about California investors coming in and driving the prices up. Now, all of a sudden, I'm a Texas investor going to Gary, Indiana, driving the prices up. Yeah.
Yes. Now, on the subject of, investments, the market being really hot, there's a lot of different types of investments out there. Tom, what is your opinion on some solid investments that are going to remain profitable through all of this economic craziness moving forward into 2021? Are there certain types of investments that you like to do? Are there certain ones that you would maybe stay away from with everything going on right now? Let's kind of dive into that a little bit.
Oh boy, now you're going to try to get people to hate me, aren't you? I'm not sure I think it was with you guys. I did a thing this summer that kind of went over the different asset classes. And let me get people mad at somebody else first if they're going to get mad at somebody. But I was actually at one of Eddie Wilson's events, who's going to be on your thing here soon. And this is a quote from him. Okay, so do you know what is the best performing real estate asset class right now? Either one of you guys, and I'll give you a hint. It's the best by far. It's not even close.
Residential rental property.
The best asset class right now is single family rentals. It's not even close. And yes, there probably are some markets around the country, like New York, for instance, and like other areas where people are moving out in the tens of thousands because they're trying to get away from big cities right now. So there probably are some really spotty, small, maybe they're big markets that are having some issues with people collecting rent. However, the vast majority, I think right now, out of the 300 plus that we manage, we're only not collecting full rent from 8 of them right now in the middle of COVID. And I think out of the 8, I think only 2 of them are just being bad tenants. And I think out of those other 6, we're either getting payments or we're working things out or they've gotten government assistance. So you tell a multifamily guy that, and I know there's probably a lot of multifamily people that are listening, and their numbers are nowhere near that. According to Eddie, this isn't my numbers. These are Eddie's numbers. The national average.
Okay. I would be a devil's advocate here a little bit.
The national average, though.
No, I think you're right, because I can run the same system to my thing.
What's that?
I can look at all different types of years. We do hundreds of thousands of investments a year. So it's a chance for us to look at that data and see what it's doing. And if you pull the asset classes out year after year after year, not just this year, but for many, many, many years to go, rental properties are always the highest because you're burning the candle at both ends of the stick. Over enough time, you can have appreciation and you're getting cash flow. I also witnessed it in my own life. My parents, I remember, I don't know if you guys remember, the crash of the 80s was horrific in Houston. We had houses that were selling for $100,000 brand new that dropped to $50,000, and there's foreclosures everywhere. Well, my parents, being really smart, they leveraged it up and bought a ton, and then guess what happened, Tom? The second wave hit. All right. And that same house that they had just bought was worth $25,000, and you could buy a dozen of them up and down the street for that. All right. So if you did any other type of investment, you would be done for like that. You know what happened to my parents, Tom? They got rich.
Yep.
Because they were not buying that house just for the appreciation. They bought it for the cash flow, and they hung on to the house, and eventually it got back up worth to $50,000, and it kept going up. But what was also happening is all those people that lost houses now had to rent something. And so rental prices were going up, and so and
we're seeing that right now as well. This happens every time, at least in our market, when economy crunches or when there's any kind of upset in the economy. Our rental prices always go up. They don't go down. They don't soften. At least, that's what I keep hearing from several different people. I do know some people in Dallas in the 2008 crash that wasn't the case, but almost everywhere else around the country that I hear, rents actually go up during times like this. So you're absolutely
have a mix here.
But back to the asset classes. So back to the question here. Let me reel you back in here. So I believe that single family is still the place to go. And that's in my opinion, that's where it's at. Whether you're a lender,
I would say the devil's advocate part of it would be that the reason that it does so well is because there is work involved. You're applying a lot of your skills often, even if they're very basic rudimentary skills, like my mom who would go and collect rent herself, or whatever, those type of things. You have more work than you do if I'm investing in an apartment complex or I'm being a lender.
Well, as the investor, you could have more work, or you could have a really great property manager. So, I mean, that does all the work for you. So, but single family, again, like I'm a single family guy, so I'm going to definitely say that. But I also think there's something that we need to be paying attention to. And that's warehouse. Where there is the demand for warehouse is just going off the charts. So really? And this is one of these things that people don't think about, and it's not very expensive to get into. I think people think it's really expensive to get into warehousing. It's not. It's not very expensive at all. You just got to find, buildings.
Can you give some examples of it going off the chart a little bit, Tom? This is good information.
Yes, Amazon, Walmart. Like, how are you buying your goods right now?
Yeah, I hear you.
All these logistics companies are buying or renting, and it's not just them, it's the secondary, it's the people that are supplying them as well. So you can't just think I have to have a warehouse just to my only big customers are UPS and FedEx and all those places that are going berserk right now because everybody's shipping everything, and Amazon and even Walmart. Walmart is expanding like nobody's business right now. So again, if there's any play for anybody to get into warehouse deals or to build warehouse or whatever, I think it's something that it's outside of our normal talk. We don't normally talk about it, but it's something I would consider. The other thing I would consider, and it's one of those things that they say is recession proof, is storage. Storage is something that I don't really ever feel like you're going to hit a grand slam with, but it's going to be steady. It's going to be even. You're going to make money. It's really hard almost to lose money in self-storage unless it's just really poorly managed. So, I mean, to me, like if you're asking for me for things where I'm putting my money, where I'm not putting my money, that's where I'm putting my money. Obviously, I think depending on if you're a long-term investor or a short-term investor, when I'm saying short-term, I'm saying less than 5 years, long-term meaning more than 10 years. I think you have to look at location as far as big cities and suburbs right now. I mean, the suburbs are getting just high demand anywhere you go, anywhere close to downtowns where they're having issues, and people are moving out of some of these big cities like New York, like Chicago, like LA. So some of these really big cities that have these mayors like Mayor Lightfoot here in Chicago. And then you have right next to Chicago, you have our mayors here in Indiana that are literally saying they're making a mistake and we're going to take advantage of them, of their mistake. I do think that I'm not trying to go political here at all, but I do think there's a price to pay for the extra lockdowns and for a lot of the insecurities that people are feeling right now. And that's going to transcend into the real estate market in every single asset class. I really do believe that. So if you're a long-term investor, I think the time to buy in those big cities is going to come soon. Does that make sense? So I actually think it's a buying opportunity if you can think 10 years down the road, because I do think it's going to take several years for the mind and the makeup of the people that left those cities to, want to come back. You go ahead.
That brings a point that you might have a beat on that I don't know. Sorry, Haley. But here in Houston, something weird's happening in the rental market. The single family housing rents are going way up, but we overbuild apartments, I think, because apartment rents are starting to drop. The other thing is more and more people rather live in a house if I'm going to work from home than live in a 600 square foot apartment.
No, that's nationwide. And honestly, I think that's what's driving our demand for single family rentals. People, I mean, you don't have no idea how many applications we got in April, June, and July. And the reason why they were applying was because they wanted to move out of the multifamily units and into a single family home. So now we're back to that single family, so I do think that you're also correct where we did overbuild a little bit in multifamily. It's the only asset class that you can say right now is probably overbuilt. And it's only overbuilt in certain markets. I don't think it's overbuilt countrywide. I don't think multifamily is overbuilt countrywide. Nowhere near the amount of that in 2006 we were overbuilt for single family, for instance.
Right.
We were way overbuilt in 2006. Right now we're really underbuilt for single family and overbuilt in certain markets to a certain degree.
What about office space? What's happening there?
Office space, it's very interesting. So,
or retail space, office space, both.
I think those are two little bit different markets, but the office space, you have companies like Nationwide that are saying that they're going to keep their 60,000 employees home permanently, which I honestly, as an entrepreneur and business owner, do not agree with, because I actually, and again, I'm going to get lots of people to hate me here. I actually believe it is less productive over the long haul. And you will find now, I do think there are some things you can do from home that are actually better and quicker and you can do more done, but there are many times where I think the production does go down, especially in certain types.
We have a large portion of our staff working from home or partially working from home. And I could show you production numbers definitely gone down. It takes more people to do less work over this year.
And it takes more communication, which takes more time. So the communication,
more IT expenses, more breakdowns because
you got it. Processes break, balls get dropped, and you don't really realize it until you've been going down the path for a certain period of time. But with that being said, there was a report that was mentioned in this last group, meeting I was at a couple of weeks ago, that actually stated that they actually surveyed the top CEOs of all the office, people that have offices in the country. And 60% of them said that in 2021, they plan to expand or rent or buy new office space. But I think what's going to happen, it seems to me that they're going to probably, instead of making everybody come to downtown, they're going to be building or renting these places in the suburbs a little bit, maybe more.
Yeah,
where
well, that's been happening in Houston for a while. Is the outlying areas have been building a lot of buildings, and I was worried they might be overbuilt. But it's interesting that you say that. One of our responses as a big company was to COVID is we rented more office space because, like you, I have to have certain key employees in there, and I wanted to spread them out. Before then, we had a lot of people in cubicles. They were too close together for COVID. So I just rented office space, and I figured come 2021, I'll fill her up if we get enough vaccines.
I really do think it's something to pay attention to. I mean, I can't tell you that I've talked to these, CEOs myself personally. I just read the report, and I thought it was very interesting to hear them say that they were going to rent more space, but it might be the fact that they're instead of them having massive headquarters in all big cities, they might be just spreading more out.
But then the building next to us is owned by Wood Group, big engineers. Mm-hmm. They just built 3 large buildings, filled them all up, and no one's been in there all year. They sent all their employees home for the entire year. Yeah.
So, I mean, eventually somehow that has to break. I think hotels are getting hotels had a really rough year this year. I don't really know. I really do think if a second major shutdown happens, which we're kind of seeing it a little bit break here and there already, I think it could break some hotel, some major hotel change. We'll only see, but I do think that there is a lot of money sitting on the sidelines right now, looking for 2021 hotels to buy and thinking that they will be getting, discounts. And I actually think out of all of the asset classes that I think are gonna go way down, the one I would be interested in buying personally would probably be, hotel, vacation space, because people really still, especially, it's almost like this pent-up demand is going to be there.
Oh, man, I know I want to go.
Wanting to go. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, some of that's personal opinion, but, obviously retail space has been an issue this year. And I mean, honestly, I feel really bad for a lot of the small businesses because they're really are getting decimated. Everybody's allowed to go to Walmart. Everybody's allowed to go to Target, but, it seems like, the small businesses are really, in small businesses, small restaurants are, a lot of them are going out of business right now. So I think only time is going to tell what's really going to happen with that. I think, the stimulus money really kind of gave us maybe 2 quarters worth of, they said the economy came back, and I'm like, I don't think the economy came back. Stimulus just kicked in, and there's enough stimulus that got pumped into the economy that, unless we have another stimulus, which we probably will, I really think that we're going to start seeing a lot of hurting businesses Q1, Q2 of next year.
Well, I mean, that brings me to a point that the accountant side of me, would point out that a lot of people wouldn't think about. And that is that most large companies, just like mine, have to run on what's called an accrual accounting basis. Mm-hmm. So yes, they received this large loan, and they got a loan, and it helped their business out, but it's still on their books as a loan. They haven't received the guidance on how to have it actually forgiven. So what's happening as the end of the year comes around, all these big companies who received money, a lot of them a lot more than they should have, in my opinion, or some of them, are not showing that money on their books. It's showing as a liability. So it kind of washed itself out. They may have even spent it. Then what's going to happen is come next year, that forgiveness is going to get shown, and it is going to have an effect in the marketplace in a lot of different ways that people haven't expected for.
Yes. The IRS has actually given their opinion on that already for the PPP loans, at least the disaster loans. I think those are just going to be loans on your books, and that's just you're going to pay it back over time. But the PPP loans are going to be forgiven, and it's going to basically count. And I'm not an accountant, but it's basically going to count like a negative expense, which is basically going to make you make more money than you really made this year. So
no, but it's not going to show on your books this year. It's all going to show on everyone's books next year.
Okay, that's not what my accountant just told me.
No, because most people
2 days ago
haven't been able to get the loans forgiven yet. So we just got the guidance.
I understand all that.
And so most of the big companies are being told.
I had this argument with my accountant like 2 days ago.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, how can they do that? We're not even going to get them forgiven until 2021. And he's like, nope, their IRS, what they're saying as of right now. Now, I actually think, if you want my gut feeling, I think they're going to change this because I don't think that Congress ever meant it to be taxed. And that's what the IRS is basically doing.
Yeah, everyone's holding out.
Exactly. So if you ask me what I really think is going to happen, I really think that it will get turned over. But like if you did get a lot of PPP loans, and right now it's not showing on your books, and your books may show a certain amount of profit or loss or whatever, just know as of right now, according to, again, what my accountant says, maybe what you're hearing is different. According to what my accountant's saying is they're going to make them all 2020. And, you're going to basically make a lot more money this year, which will make you pay more taxes this year as well.
And mine are telling me just the opposite. It's all that, hey, hang on, everyone's waiting, and it's all going to fall into 2021. By the way, I took a PPM loan, so I have one, and that's where mine's going.
You're right.
If I even tried to get it into 2020, I could not get the loan forgiveness into 2020.
Yeah, we wouldn't be able to either. I mean, we're ready for it, but we wouldn't be able to. So I don't know. I would definitely pay close attention to it. Ask your accountants, because neither me or Nathan are practicing accountants.
Yeah, no, man, we're just business owners.
We're just looking out for our own and trying to make sure that that we are doing what we're supposed to be doing right now. But that was what I heard, and I wasn't really happy about it. And I kind of was upset about it when I got done with that meeting. But it is, and whatever it is, whatever it is, and that is something that we all need to be paying attention to.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Okay, Haley,
give us
another question before we ramble on forever.
Hey, you know what? I'm just here, just observing, learning myself. All right, cool. So next question on the list here is, what are some ways that you've seen investors and business owners adapt to the market during COVID? Are the COVID changes to price, product, and IRA guidelines here to stay for 2021? Or do you think things are just going to go back to normal? Whatever normal is. You want me to repeat the question? It was kind of
No, I think we got it. Give Tom a second.
Okay.
Well, there's two questions there, right?
Right.
Yes.
So, I mean, I think one of the best examples is Quest here. So you already mentioned this as well. You kind of hate not doing all your live events, right, Nathan?
Yeah, all our live events are done.
Yeah.
Like last year in 2019, we put 612 live events on across the country and through our different offices. And I bet you we didn't do 5 this year. And they were all in January. March. You know what I mean?
So for me, like, I think that's one of the biggest changes that people have had to be able to adapt to. If you didn't know what Zoom was before, the COVID, you definitely know what Zoom is now. People are also using some other apps and Google Hangouts and some other places that you can, do video conferencing. So I think that's probably one of the biggest changes. And honestly, I think it's helped us in 2 different ways. I think number one, I think a lot of companies out there have realized, okay, if this can be done remotely, some of this can probably be done by VAs as well. So it's a way for us to be able to use cheaper labor to be able to get things done. But we've also realized, hey, there are some things and some businesses specifically that I think do need key communicators and key people in offices that actually work together. So I think we've actually really been able to figure that out. I think one of the biggest things, and I keep saying this all year since April, I don't think that we're going to have a better time in our lifetime, or at least I don't think I've seen one, a better time to find really good talent right now. If you're not hiring, and if you have an opportunity to hire, I think right now is the time to hire.
I'm hiring every single person I possibly can till the point I'm going broke. I don't care, right? I'm going to pick them up now, and I'm going to train them. I'm going to mold them. I'm going to make them mine.
And it's so obvious who the good ones are and who the bad ones are.
Oh my God.
Like, if somebody's coming to you and they're like, well, I've been sitting at home for the last 3 months because I've been getting more money, and you're like, nope, next one. You're like, it's so obvious who really wants to work and who is going to be the good employees and who is going to be the people that
the job market's so improved.
It's a year and a half ago we were complaining because there wasn't enough people to hire. Now there's way more than enough people to hire, and I just think that it's something that if you're missing, and even like Nathan said, I'm not to that point yet where I'm just going to go all in on hiring, but we have had 2 really key hires this year that I feel like I never would have been able to hire unless we had a year this year. And if you haven't already, which I think everybody has, probably, if you have any dead weight or if you have any people that there's some reason why you should let go, or you just say la vie, don't put up with it. If they're not a part of your vision, if they don't fit.
Man, I think that's super great advice, and we've been doing that at Quest. You can ask.
As far as the IRA question, I'll just defer to you guys on what changes may happen.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, and just to kind of add to that, I was actually a panelist for our last new hire cycle, so I helped train a lot of our new hires. And Nathan's not kidding; we hired a bunch, but we immediately held them all to the same standards, expected everything and more out of them. And the ones who weren't cut out for it didn't last very long.
15, 7 of them made it through the review. That's how hard we were on them. And talented ones, attorneys, all types of things, CPAs, investment advisors, people I could not have picked up before. Talented people. I'm really excited for the people to have. Here's another thing I think that's important. First of all, I do think that some of this Zoom knowledge is going to definitely carry on even after everyone's going forward. I think people are still going to be much more mask conscious and hand washing conscious and all types of things well into our future. But this has been great for us in some ways. Like, I'm still doing all those events, not quite as many, but almost as many. They're not quite as effective, but they sure cost a whole heck of a lot than packing Haley up, putting her on a plane and sending her to Chicago to speak to 100 people. You know what I mean?
Haley coming out here.
Though she definitely misses me doing that. But and we're going to go back to that. But I think that it'll be like a dual thing for us. We'll be doing more Zoom and we'll be doing that. We also learned how to regulate our employees' needs a little bit better, and by having some alternate schedules and learn to integrate their family life a little bit better with our work life. But COVID has pointed out a problem that I've experienced before. I have a large Houston office where everything is run, and then I have 2 remote offices, Austin and Dallas, that are very small, but they have everything that they need there to function. You get what we call remote office-itis. In other words, you feel so separated from the main office that people start to get down, like physically down. And like, what are they doing over there in Houston? And so if I don't take those employees, have them come to Houston for a week, have my Houston employees come to Dallas and Austin for a week, we get what's called remote-itis. Is that... Haley ran my Dallas office for a while, so you could talk about that, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, yeah, it happens.
And COVID has that effect. It's like you said, when you're working from home, you can lose some of your creativity that you get from the masterminding with each other.
Yeah, you definitely missed the teamwork, and although we got very communicative with our teams and actually made them do all Zoom morning huddles. Before they even got started, which really helped us, and then it kind of transcended back into the regular huddles that we would have here. But you're 100% right. That was probably the biggest thing that our staff said, that the reason why they all wanted to come back when we came back the first time in June was like, they just missed being with people, because you have a community here. You really do have a work community. So absolutely 100%.
Yeah, we're running on a hybrid model right now. Most of our employees, if they have their own office, they come in all the time. If they share an office, which most employees do, they work 2.5 days a week at home, 2.5 days a week at the office, and that allows them to come in. The trick is the poor employees that have, minor children at home that they're having to school or man, that's
Mm-hmm.
they're struggling, and of course the productivity does come down because of that too.
Yeah, it is really hard because, even if they're doing remote learning or whatever the case is, it takes a lot more work on the parents to make these things happen. I think there ought to be a stimulus package for just the parents.
Okay, can I ask a question now? Damn, I'm sitting on more money than I've ever sat on in my life. All right. And that's family money. Tom, you know my family, right? We all invest together. Family money, that's 401k money, that's IRA money, all of those monies, my mother-in-law, all of it. We're just sitting on cash. And I honestly think that's not a bad thing to be doing right now. But when is it that we should start moving back in? What is it we should start moving back in? How do you feel about that? I can't find loans right now. So my primary source of investment has dried up. Nobody wants my money, So, and I think that a lot of investors are asking that same question. I think one of the answers I've came to for myself is I need to move a little bit more into the single family rental market again, and I had moved out over the years because of the work factor. But I think that that's something that for me personally, so I'm asking this for me, I'm not asking for
No, sure. I actually just wrote down can't find loans, so we'll send you some. I'm just kidding. But no, seriously, I actually think you can. I actually think this is part of, so you're experiencing a couple different things, I think, right now. First of all, there's a little bit of anxiety in everybody right now. I don't care who you are. Doesn't matter what side of the political aisle you're on, you have anxiety right now. And I don't care what side of COVID you're on, you have anxiety right now. So we all have a little bit of anxiety right now. And when we have anxiety, we tend to hoard. We tend to kind of hold everything tight. And I think to a certain degree, there's a little bit of health and survival in that. But I think that I would recommend don't get too comfortable and I would still try to be doing some, deals and be doing some things. But I think what you're experiencing right now is one of the bad things about not having live events, because you probably have to admit it. Most of your deals come from where? Going to the live events. How many deals are happening on these chat rooms right here, and on the probably nowhere near as many as happened last year in Houston when we had the big Quest Expo. I'll tell you, me personally, I think I did 6 or 7 deals in that one weekend when I was at the Quest Expo. Like, to me, like, you do deals because of people you break bread with, you sit down with, you like, you trust them. And you just don't get that same like, and trust feeling by being on the phone or, seeing people across the screen. So I probably can help you with that. Honestly, Nathan,
I send me some deals. Seriously, Tom. I mean, we haven't talked in a while.
Absolutely.
But come on, man. I'll fund some stuff. I'm ready to do. I'm ready.
I
like to loan in Texas because I'm used to it. But I'll go out of state, and I think a lot of my friends are sitting in the same category.
But, there are people that are doing deals and are still in markets right now that are working, because I think there's markets that are working and markets that just aren't working. So I'm just very, very selective with where I'm lending my money to. And I mean, and there's obvious reasons, but I think there's a whole nother level of security that I think, and I think one of those things that's new now that it wasn't as prevalent 2 years ago was like locations have changed. There's some locations I will not do any deals in. I don't care.
Yes, that's
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
What about you? You have the same problem, don't you? Or did you and your family have a lot of money that's been getting put off to the sidelines and having a hard time?
No, we don't have a hard time at all right now.
No, I'm Haley.
Oh, Haley.
Lost her.
Hi, I'm here. Not really, to be honest. I've only heard the side from like Jet Lending. Jet Lending has had like record months this year as far as loaning out funds to other investors. I think they broke their record in June, and then they shattered it again in September.
Yeah, but they don't want my IRA money. They seem to have enough money from somewhere. So, you know what I mean? They're getting it done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Her dad runs Jet Lending. I'm sorry,
yes.
Which is a big hard money lender here in our area.
Yeah. So when you said that, Nathan, I was kind of shocked because like all the lenders I know are doing record number of deals right now.
Yeah, I haven't. I'm being honest, man. Maybe it's just me because
I do know lenders.
Like I said, I'm
not
sitting at
getting
home
paid
and I'm
back on
not
stuff.
finding my deals like I used to.
Yeah, I mean, so I honestly, Nathan, I think we just pointed it out. If you ask me, it's probably because you're not going to the events and you're not meeting people and people aren't coming up.
And I bet you there's a lot of people that are on this call that are doing the exact same thing I am.
You got it. 100%. We got to have a mastermind just for that.
Yeah. I like that. Are you doing your masterminds on Zoom too?
No, honestly, I actually take it back. We have changed a little bit. We are doing a virtual mastermind. So we do have the virtual Good Success Mastermind. They get virtual access to our 20 calls per year, plus our all-day events on the last Saturday of every month, and the actual national mastermind and boot camps. They get virtual access to all that. So it's something we actually added this year. It's actually been a good thing for us to be able to add that piece of it. But we are still doing all of our live events. We did move them all to our conference center here that I have here at my office. And I think Haley's been here. If not, I know Rebecca's been here several times. So we still are doing our live events. The only thing we had to do is like push them back a little bit in last year. And then this year we decided not to have our first one until like the very end of March, early
if you come to any one of my 3 classrooms, what you see is we've moved desks in there 10 feet apart. we have not had an event, and I pay very expensive rent for 3 very large auditoriums,
Mm-hmm.
And what they're being used for is I got an intern sitting there,
Yeah, we are still doing them. We are just social distancing, and we are doing all the things that we can do here. And as of right now in our county, I believe we can still do events up to 50 without having any. And if we do them larger than 50, we can still do them. We just have to, have a health plan that we write out and submit to the health department, and they have to approve it. So our events have been all under 50 people, so that we don't have these massive, events. Like if I was doing, events in the hundreds, I'd probably be not doing them either right now, because I think it's just too much work.
Okay. Haley's got a question for us. I can tell by her face.
Yeah. So I'm actually have a couple questions from our audience. Sally wants to know, what is your opinion about investing in RV parks? Do you think that this is a good opportunity moving forward? What's your opinion on this?
Question.
I'll go
first.
I have
an opinion.
I guess my first question would be a question back to you, and obviously you can't answer this live, but I would ask yourself, how much do you know about RV parks? And do you have anything that you can bring to it? As a passive investor in anything, I don't really like it because I don't really believe in 100% passive investment. I think any investment has to have some kind of management and some kind of active part of the passive investment. Mm-hmm. And unless you're independently wealthy and you are worth like maybe north of 100 million or more, and you actually just have to do investments and you have to keep your money working, I really believe that most people make their biggest mistakes they can possibly make by investing in things they don't understand. So I think if you understand it and you understand the economics behind it, and the most important piece of any investment deal is the people that are backing it. And if you trust them and you know them and you like them, and you believe in them, then like, it's a great deal, like whatever. Like to me, like, I think any deal can be a good deal, but I think the more you know about it personally and the more you can bring to the table from a knowledge and from
you think that COVID's going to affect it? More people are taking road trips now, but are they going to continue to do that in 21, 22, 23? When we're talking about real estate, we're talking about typically long time frames,
Yep, you got it. Again, but then that has to even do with how much knowledge you have of the local network, and are people actually going to travel there or not? Like honestly, I actually thought about just buying a second house in South Dakota this year because I just like their governor and I just love their being out there, and I love we went out there this summer with our kids, and it was amazing. The Badlands, if you've never been to the Badlands and never been to some of those state parks out there, Custer's Park,
they're pretty cool.
Mount Rushmore, all that stuff is just, it's really cool. And the people out there are just amazing. So it's like Texas was, 50 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'll never
and
forget
it's
my
funny.
trip to Mount Rushmore when I was a kid. I was so excited. I got to watch them because there was a tree that was growing out of Lincoln's nose. And it looked like, and they were up there like hanging. And I was so fascinated. I'm like, look, they're trimming his nose hair. Anyway, go ahead, Haley. Sorry. I definitely got off.
That's okay. That's what I'm here for. Yeah, just kind of on that note of RV parks, obviously invest in what you understand. But I would say from personal experience, and Sarah, who's moderating, actually took a 2-week road trip around like 20 national parks earlier this year. But the national parks have been insanely crowded.
Yes.
We've got a family friend that does tiny houses on Airbnb, literally out in the middle of nowhere in the country. Yeah. Staying booked. I think people now that, they didn't have a lot of other options, those are the things that they're turning to. Mm-hmm. And I know me personally, I'm probably going to keep taking trips like that. I just went camping with a group of friends this week.
I don't know the answer. I'm asking it as a question. Like, is it going to continue? Mm-hmm. It's definitely, people are enjoying road trips much more. So I've taken a couple of them this year versus flying all over the country, all over the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the location of those has a lot to do with it as well. So, there's RV parks all over the country. So just, again, the more you know about it and the more you can get real data. I just don't think that 2020 data is going to be, really 100% accurate in 2025. So,
yeah, it's going to be a crazy year on all the charts. That's for sure.
And like you said, Haley, maybe more people will do it this year, and then it'll be a long tail, and you might have the next 5 or 10 years of a lot more travel for this. I know even the tiny home craze is still kind of kicking in certain areas as well. Mm-hmm. A buddy of mine's actually building them in Texas for people, and he can't keep them in stock. He just buys them as fast as he can build them.
Mm-hmm. There's a couple of them on my street, and what's weird is a lot on my street sells for $700,000. Now, why they would put a tiny home on a $700,000 lot, I have no idea. But I've seen them. It's like, you just got to be quirky.
They can't afford the house if they paid for the lot.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't make any sense. The tax on the lot a year is more than
unbelievable.
You could rent the house for. But anyway.
All right, cool. Reel you guys back in for a second. Tom, I really want to hear more about these corporate rentals. I'm straying away from the sheet for a second because I think this is really interesting. Airbnbs, as we were just mentioning, have been so popular lately. Everyone is like dying to get into Airbnb. What is different about corporate rentals? How do you rent those out? What types of people are renting them? And why do you think that this is a good investment? Why are you going towards these?
A couple of reasons. So first of all, I will give you some data that you probably don't know. In 2019, if you looked at year over year returns on Airbnb versus 2018, they actually went down. So at the end of 2019, I started seeing this data and I'm like, this doesn't seem right. Like I'm looking at my numbers and I'm like, that does not correlate with my numbers. What I found out is that if you go around the country and you find these markets, there's so many people that have gotten onto our Airbnb and so many people that are doing it that it's flooded the market. And what is the one rule that we always talk about when it comes to real estate? And it works every time. It's supply and demand. So if you have too much demand, what happens? Or if you have too much supply and not enough demand, what happens? Prices go down. So that's really what caused that in 2019 is that the average price of a single night stay for a 3-bedroom house went from like $180 a night national average down to like $120 a night. And it's very interesting because I can remember in Richmond, Virginia, for instance, when I went up to go see Jim Ingersoll 5 or 6 years ago, I could get a 3-bedroom house. It cost me about $189 a night. 2 years ago, it was like $100 a night for the exact same house. And I'm like, okay, what in the world's going on? But that wasn't the case in my market because in my market, I'm the only person doing it. So we have 15 houses in our county, and I think there's only 18 houses in our county. So know your market if you're going to get into Airbnb. But what we found for the difference in corporate rental and Airbnb is it's about 1/3 the work, and you make almost the same amount of net money. You don't make the same amount of gross money, but you also don't have the turnover and the cleanings and all the extra work that goes into it. So for us, like a corporate rental, the way I envision a corporate rental would be people like your traveling nurses, people like construction workers that are coming in to a location to build, steel mills that are being built here in our area, or the casino that's massive casino the Hard Rock Casino is being built right here in Gary, Indiana. Or whatever plant that they're building, and so construction workers, my favorite people for these corporate rentals are construction workers. Why? They have 3 or 4 guys that are all getting $75 to $100 a night. And when you say you're going to charge them $100 a night, or $3,000, or $125 a night, or $4,000 a month, they don't even care. And that same house, you probably only get $1,300, $1,500 a month in rent for. You're making like 2 times the amount of gross. When you make 2 times the amount of gross on a rental, and the only additional cost you have is maybe utilities and garbage pickup and some things like that, your net like triples or quadruples. So I mean, you could make $1,000 a month on a corporate rental, and the same rental you might make $300 a month as a regular rental. There's a little bit more work, and we normally have a minimum of a 1-month stay, but most of them stay for at least 13 weeks. 13 weeks seems to see like that 3-month stay is like they get these contracts that normally last about that time. And that's what we've had the best luck with, and the lowest amount of headache, and the least amount of damage, and the nicest customers. So you talk about like creating your perfect market and your perfect type of deal. The only thing is it's obviously it's a little bit more turnover. So every 3 months you got to find, that new person, instead of having a renter that stays for a year or 2 or 3 or 4 years. But for us, we have found that it's well worth it. And we really do like the corporate rental model. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
It does. Nate, do you have anything to add to that? We're asking a few more questions.
Well, yes, you're running the show, Haley. Tell us what to do.
All right, perfect. Let's see. I already asked that question. So I know, there's kind of more shutdowns coming. Some counties are more shut down than others. Foreclosures have been extended or, whatever in a lot of places. Where do you see this going in 2021? Do you think that a lot of foreclosures are immediately going to hit the market once they're allowed? Do you think people are going to be taking advantage of it like they might be with not paying their rent? What insight do you have for us there for foreclosures?
Nathan said he was a smart guy. I want to look into his crystal ball first on this one.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I just tell you, here in Texas, it's like a landslide. Like there is a dam of foreclosures that are waiting to happen. How fast the county can actually get through them, how fast we can do a lot of things, how many of them are going to become judicial because we're a foreclosure state is tough. We've also had a very interesting thing that's bogged us down here. We had a lot of very seasoned, and I'm not getting political, I'm really not. We had a lot of very seasoned judges who are getting reelected year after year, who are very moderate or whatever. Well, they kind of got thrown out in the Democratic sweep in the last 2 elections. What happened is we have a lot of very inexperienced judges. My wife's an attorney, so a thing. And that's creating certain clogs in the court market, that's in the courts themselves, because they're not running very efficiently because they're new. It's nothing wrong with them. They're just new. And so there is problems there that I'm not sure how they're going to iron out. They could all come out at once. They could, how's it going to happen? I don't know. I don't know about your market, but that's how I feel about ours.
Yeah, I mean, I think only time's going to tell. I don't. My attorney was not expecting them to actually do what they did through the CDC with this last whole rent. I think you got 2 different issues here. You got the rent referendums, and you also have the foreclosures. I will say, unless I have no idea how they're going to fix the foreclosures. I think the rent referendums eventually end. They run out. a bunch of people get evicted, or what I actually think will happen just as much as people getting evicted is like people find the money, because that's what happens. Sometimes people find the money when they actually have to come up with it. But right now, I think there was like some massive number, like 7 million people went into some kind of forbearance, okay, back in like June. And then at the end of August, early September, okay, it's over. You're supposed to start making your payments again, or you're supposed to get caught up, or whatever the case is. Only something like 300,000 of them got caught up. So we're sitting on like 6.7 million people that are taking on some kind of massive risk to be foreclosed on. It is a big deal. And it's definitely something to watch. I honestly don't think we have any idea about how it's actually going to play out. If you ask me my opinion, I'd say there's probably going to be something in the next stimulus package that probably helps some of these people, and we'll see what it actually is. But honestly, like, I think all we're doing is, like we always do, kick the can down the road a little bit, and eventually it's going to play out. I think irregardless, I think you'll actually still see foreclosures start hitting second half of 2021 if you want some kind of prediction from me. And obviously the states all handle these differently. So it could be 2, 3, 4 years after that before they all flush themselves out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that brings up a great point, with the rentals and, people getting evicted, people maybe choosing to pay or maybe not to pay. Have you changed, or have you seen people change how they screen renters? Things that you might be looking at now that maybe you didn't look at before. I really like this topic. I want to hear your take on this. Absolutely.
So we have done honestly, my team has been amazing when it comes to this. I thank God every day for the team that I have, and the wisdom on my leadership team, and Cheryl, who runs my property management company. We started this way back in April. So in April, and we just keep adding to it. So the very first thing that we did is one of the things that we would do is that if, say, somebody came in the middle of the month, they came in April 15th, we would normally make them bring their security deposit and then the prorated rent to the end of the month, 15 days worth. And then, at the first of the month, they would have to bring next month's payment, right? Well, we decided, okay, right off the bat, we're not doing that anymore. If they're going to come in the middle of the month, they got to bring this half month plus the entire whole month next month and the security deposit in order to make it happen. The next thing that we instituted was, and we didn't institute this until like July, but we are now contacting the previous landlord and making sure their last 3 months were paid. So we don't accept anybody unless they can prove to us that the last 3 months, because I don't want somebody moving from someone else that was a problem and coming to ours. And then we want to make sure that those last 3 months are paid. As far as everything else goes, I don't think we've made any other, major changes other than maybe the way we show properties just because of COVID restrictions, the way we do contracts. We've kind of gotten a little bit more automated with those types of situations. But we use Buildium, and Buildium really looks into all the different things that you can possibly look into when it comes to judgments, landlord reports. Credit's only a little small piece of the puzzle. I think a lot of people put way too much stock into credit, but I feel like we already had a really good vetting system beforehand, but we did add those 2 steps to it. And honestly, like, I feel like we've gotten amazing renters, throughout this whole thing. So hopefully that helps, but those are some of the tweaks that we have done. I will say some of our owners have asked us to do month to months. I kind of have mixed feelings on doing the month to month during this whole time. So I do think that for some people and in some counties, because different judges are going to look at that differently, it could be a thing, because right now we are still being able to evict if it's the end of lease. So the only reason why we cannot evict is if for non-payment only. That's the only reason why we cannot evict. And our judges are still evicting people. Now they have stopped now because we stop evictions in our county December, I think 7th or something, until like January 7th. So we have this like Christmas time whatever they call it. I don't know. Get people through the holidays thing. But up until then, we were still evicting if it was like the end of lease. So for instance, if you did a month to month in our county, you could be able to get people out at the end of that month by just giving them, their month's notice if they weren't paying. So, I mean, I think there are some ideas and people doing that. I think some people like it. I think we've reached out to our owners and some of them like the idea. Some of them don't. Some of them really still want to have, a 1 or 2 year or 18-month, lease signed by people. But for me, I feel like if you have really good people, it doesn't really matter. And if you really do find good tenants, it shouldn't matter.
That was really good.
Mm-hmm.
Good
Awesome.
question too, Haley.
Thank you. So this is one from one of our audience members. It's an interesting question. I want to hear your take on it. Todd wants to know, what's your opinion on investing into single family new construction to hold as a rental with a 5 to 7 year hold strategy?
I love it right now. If you can build, I think the only problem with building right now is it's the same problem that we're running into with even rehabbing is materials have really gone up. I mean, I know a new construction builder right now in Florida, they switched all their framing to steel because steel is actually cheaper right now than wood.
Isn't that weird?
So like, if you can actually build and still make money today, I think all that's going to do is make the prices still go up over time. And again, I've been saying this for the last 5 years, so now it's time for me to put up or shut up. I still believe that the low affordable housing market is so insulated this time around that I don't really believe we have a massive dip coming in the affordable housing. I do believe we have a massive dip coming, and I do believe it's going to be between the $300,000 and $600,000 price point, and it's going to be exacerbated when interest rates normalize, and eventually they will normalize. So. And I don't think they're going to normalize in the next 18 months. So I don't think this is like really a big fear for right now. But when it does happen and foreclosures start hitting, we are going to see, I think if you're going to get your biggest discounts, that's where your discounts are going to come on existing housing. But if you can build right now, and if there are markets that you can still build and still be able to make money, but they're selling right now on the worldwide market at like a 4 cap or 3 cap even. So you should be able to, if you're a builder, you can still make money with those. And if you're okay with those types of returns, or if you can get better than that, I really do love the build to rent, or even honestly, manufactured housing right now for the long haul, and doing those build to rent type scenarios, I think is a really good play right now. And the manufactured housing, my friend Glenn Schomburg, which you guys know really well, they're selling houses right outside of Austin right now for like $300,000 for manufactured housing, guys. So, just there are there's lots of plays out there. Trust me, there's a lot of plays when it comes to that. And I think it's something that people should be paying attention to. Absolutely. The build to rent scene has really made massive moves in 2020.
My other brother, most of you don't know him, but he is a house builder. He builds subdivisions as well as individual single family homes in just in the Corpus and Ingleside, Rockside area. So not the big city here. His whole strategy is right now, this year, he's building everything he can, regardless of how much wood costs, regardless if he's got a buyer for it or not, everything he can. Why? Because they're doing a lot of industry, and he can still, in that area, even at these high costs, build houses for less than $250,000 that are pretty nice that people would want to live in. Mm-hmm. What does he try to do with his extra money or his extra building time? He's building small rental properties for himself that he's hanging on to.
Yep.
Right. So he'll buy some land. He'll build 3 houses. He'll sell 2 and keep 1 as a small rental property, something like that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. As nice. Well as building as many subdivisions and stuff at the same time that he can.
I do hate putting myself in a box of saying like it's only a 5 to 7 year window. I mean, who knows? In 3 years, it might be ready to sell, or you might say, okay, maybe we really need to make this a 10-year strategy. So, I mean, to me, like I will tell on when the right time is to exit. But it's a little harder to pinpoint that time of exit in single family today than I would say it was maybe 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. All right. We have time for just a few more questions. We've talked a lot about investing in different areas. A lot of things are very much location dependent. I know we have a lot of clients and viewers out there that might be in states that maybe aren't quite as investor friendly. Now, if someone lives in a state that's not quite as investor friendly, do you think it would be worth their time to invest out of state or keep it in their own state, keep it close to home? What's your opinion of, investing close to where you are, or maybe investing in other parts of the country where things might be a little easier for you?
You want to take it, Nathan?
Okay. Well, I got two sides of it, right? First of all, I think that for a lot of us in America, the best investing is not at home. Okay. Certainly it's very difficult to invest right here in Houston. If you live in LA, if you live in New York, if you live in San Francisco, I wouldn't do real estate investing in most of those cities under most things unless it was very specialized and I had a lot of control, right? Mm-hmm. So what does that mean? That means that I do have to go out and market. As I do that, I better be prepared. With every investment, you always got to be prepared for the worst case scenario. I'm a lender. So if I'm going to do loans up his way, one of the aces in my hole is I got Tom. In other words, in the end, if the loan goes bad, I could call Tom and say, hey, man, you want to buy this house? Do you want to do this? Can you give me a little bit of help? And I got buddies in that area, or what Quincy likes to call boots on the ground, that can kind of help me if I get in a situation. I sometimes get outside of that personally, and that has really been some of the worst investments I've done in my life when they've gone bad. I still do it every once in a while because there's usually enough margins or something, or I feel comfortable enough with the investor that I'm doing it with that I have a very low chance of actually going into that foreclosure situation or something. And if it happens, I'll just have to deal with it when it happens. But I've had this situation where I've had a loan out and I found out that in that state, it took me 2.5 years to figure out how to foreclose on the property, even though the guy who was incarcerated and in jail and all types of stuff. The property just sat there while I tried to figure out how to gain ownership of it. It was horrible. So boots on the ground, I think, are important, or at least have somebody there that you can talk to or mentor with or deal with. Tom?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I also think that even if you are investing outside of your area, you probably should know a little bit about the area and know why you're investing in the area. But one of the biggest investments that I think you should make in that, if you're going to do that, is go and actually see what you're doing. I'm not saying you have to take a trip every year. You have to take a trip, every month or whatever, and go look at every property. But you ought to at least go see who you're dealing with, see their operation, see everybody that's behind that person as well. Because a lot of people will talk a big talk and then you kind of come see who's behind them and you realize they don't really have anybody behind them. So to me, like, honestly, yes, my word is my bond. And I, tell people all the time, like I'd sell everything I had in order to pay somebody back. That's me. But what if I die? Like, to me, it's to me, I think, when people invest in my area and invest in me, I don't feel like it's just me that's backing that security or just me that's backing them. It's everybody that works for me, and it's my entire team. And it's even the culture and our core values, I think, that back what we do in those investments. So to me, like, I think that's what you really want to go find out. You really want to go look at the location. You really want to go interview the other people on their team. And
years ago, I took that advice from you, Tom. You gave me that exact advice. And now I schedule every year my major lenders or borrowers. I spend a day with them and have them drive me around and show me what projects they're working on, mine and other people's. Right. We look at their financial records a little bit when things, and I tell them this is to make sure that I'm comfortable still being in lending. I found out some amazing things. First of all, I had some really good investors that were better than I